Oh, yeah, I also want a kid of my own, Richard remarked sarcastically. I spoke up because I eventually could not stand it any longer. What are you saying? I inquired. Is he not already here? Richard has been relentlessly critical of our infertility up to this point. He's holding my sister's kid in front of me right now, almost like he's trying to rub it in. Richard pretends to be surprised as his mouth opens wide. That being said, it's evident that he has no intention of playing stupid. He won't get away with it. I'll see to it that everyone is aware of the situation. Maria is my name. I am a housewife of 25 years old. I had just finished cooking supper when I opened the big pot and let the elegant scent fill the room. I took a taste of the soup I had prepared. The meat was tender and the sweetness was perfect. It was ideal, exactly as Richard wanted it. With a satisfied sigh, I heard Richard arrive home. I went to welcome him at the door. I said, "Welcome back. Tonight I made your favorite soup." I was about to head back to the kitchen after taking Richard's luggage at the door when he grabbed my shoulder and looked me in the eye. "How was your day?" he inquired. I believe today was the day. I gulped at what he said. My heart raced and I experienced shock. "Respond to me," he commanded. I gulped hard and forced myself to say something. It also didn't work out this month. We did not become parents. I balled my fist together. Richard let out a long sigh at this. His frustration was obvious as he questioned, "Why can't we have a child?" To appease me, he said, "I want kids too." How fabricated. I apologize, but I won't give an explanation. All of my friends who got married soon after had children. They appear to be quite content as they choose names and shop for baby clothing. We've just been married for 3 months, but I also want kids. We're not in a hurry. After giving me a long look, Richard snorted as though he had just realized something. "Are you infertile, I take it?" "Perhaps you need to consult a gynecologist," he remarked indifferently. Richard took his suitcase from me and disappeared inside his room without waiting for an answer. I put both of my hands over my face. I'd like to bring a child into the world and treasure each tiny victory as they develop. Perhaps I'm not cut out for it, though. My twin sister and I were left alone when our parents vanished before I could even begin to understand. We were raised without experiencing the affection of our parents. Is it possible for someone like me to become a good parent? My worry has always been that. I can't give up, though. If my request is sincere, God will undoubtedly provide me with a kid one day. I'll cling to that conviction and bide my time. Also, our much-anticipated wedding ceremony is taking place next month. Even if it's a little late, my expectations are greater. Okay, give me a minute, please. I headed over to ask Richard to dinner. It's his birthday today, and I've baked a cake and wrapped a present. It was unusual for him to answer the doorbell when I was waiting for him to get home. As I quickly responded, I noticed a stunningly elegant woman who appeared to be a movie star, caressing her glossy black hair off her shoulders. "Hey, Maria!" Victoria, my twin sister, was there. I was taken aback when I saw her because of how different she looked from me. "Victoria, why are you here?" "I just stopped by to say hi. However, today is Richard's birthday, correct? I wanted to share in your celebration." "Celebrate? Only the two of us?" As soon as Victoria realized her error, she apologized. "I apologize. I forgot. All I wanted to do was see you. Since you got married, I've been alone." Victoria has been unexpectedly showing up roughly every 3 days since my marriage. As a result, I haven't spent much time alone with Richard or had a meaningful conversation. However, I lack the energy to say anything when I hear Victoria mention that she's lonely. We are the only family after all. "Hey, sis, this bag is for you. It hasn't been utilized much lately." I was given a paper bag by her. When I opened it, I saw a stunning piece from a well-known brand. "Whoa, this is very lovely." "It's all right. This is for you, instead of my friends, as I generally give these to them. After accepting it, take your buddies out to dinner, but you don't actually have buddies like I do, that's correct? Victoria remarked. By the way, check this out. Displaying a picture from a recent celebration. There she was, enjoying a dinner party with more than 100 of her friends in style. I laughed. You're such a social butterfly, Victoria. You are entirely different from who I am. Money, a partner, and a great career are all fantastic. Simply said, it's impossible for me. I smiled at her warmly. Victoria, however, laughed uncontrollably and clutched her stomach as her gaze fell to the table. Did you really create this cake yourself, I wonder? Yes, I answered. Is that out of the ordinary? She laughed and replied, Well, everyone knows people prefer store-bought cakes. Sis, you're working so selflessly. It's rather depressing. Victoria smiled as she moved closer to me and added, Well, I guess that's what makes you adorable. Excitement instantly lit up her expression. Victoria said, That's right. I actually have some news to share, as Richard arrived home from work. We broke off our chat to say hello to him. Richard and Victoria became enthused about something they saw on TV as I was slicing the cake. This is really awful, Victoria remarked. She was an actress, but she was unable to conceive until she was 40. How wretched. They appeared to have a good relationship as they gossiped and spoke about celebrities. My heart skipped a beat when they started airing baby images on TV. Having children is, in my opinion, a woman's mission, and those who are unable to procreate don't truly exist. Victoria responded, I get it. I really click with you. Don't we get along so well? I served the cake in silence. That's right, Victoria, jeered Richard. Victoria's eyes widened in surprise. I apologize. I didn't intend to hurt you. I had another person in mind when I spoke. Victoria's smile suddenly had a new, sharp edge that I had never noticed before. Her expression clearly had an evil quality to it. I questioned if her repeated visits were motivated by a genuine longing for her sister or by some other factor. I got a message on my phone after Victoria departed and the party finished. It said, I'm actually pregnant. Recall that I mentioned having news. Naturally, we intend to tie the knot. I apologize for discovering happiness before you. Something evil surged inside me. Even though it should be a joyful event when a family member finds pleasure, I felt jealous. Time appeared to fly by in an instant. The much-anticipated wedding day is today. Our site of choice was a modest neighborhood church. Though it's not much, we wanted to put as much money aside as we could for the kids we want to have in the future. I was having a quiet time in the changing room after putting on my wedding gown. However, that tranquility vanished in an instant. With a loud boom, the door flew open. Yes, I am present. Many congratulations, big sister. Victoria made a declaration. I looked around in shock to find my sister. I was in for an even more startling sight. Hello, Victoria. What's up with that outfit? You shouldn't wear white to a wedding. After taking a deep breath, I said, Victoria had on a dress that was all white. I tried to avoid it, but I just fell in love with this dress. She apologized in an overly dramatic manner. Furthermore, it fits me, doesn't it? She grinned. With a proud stance, she seemed to be looking down on me with her head tilted. Then she examined me closely and critically. Is the dress handmade? It appears more like a gown than a dress. It is not shaped like a typical fluffy object. Yes, I answered. The designer created it just for me, and I enjoy that. There are my favorite flowers stitched on it. Victoria grinned, but it was a chilly smile. That's great for you, wow. However, needlework has a vintage feel about it. I feigned a laugh. But you look great in it, so it's all right, I guess. Victoria said, Thank you, maintaining her smile. Richard stormed into the dressing room at that very moment and declared, "You look beautiful." There was no warmth in his remarks. I gave a long, heavy sigh. The celebration was about to begin after the ceremony proceeded without a hitch. A family member's speech is the next to come. The ceremony proceeded without any problems. The males in the room began to whisper as soon as Victoria took the microphone. Gorgeous, lovely. As they continued to stare at her stunning appearance, they uttered the words, "I wish I could marry someone like her." "Victoria here, her sister." "Nice to meet you all." Victoria greeted everyone. "We appreciate your attendance, despite a few seats being empty today. The rate of absences at the reception was 30%. Victoria's pals were supposed to arrive, but none of them did. As you can see, my sister only has around 8 friends overall. Typically, she stays home alone over the holidays, nibbling on food and checking her phone. Isn't it just so sad? The visitors laughed, and I felt my face's blood flow stop. "Victoria, could you please clarify? This is a reception for a wedding." Victoria went on, "But I love my sister just the way she is, despite my discomfort. Please, Richard, bring my sister joy." With an almost beautiful grin, she gave a round of applause. I was not even going to consider who the genuine recipient of the applause was. I called my sister into the changing room following the reception. "Victoria, why did you say that? For your buddies, there were the vacant seats. You gave the impression that it was my fault." I begged hard. Victoria rubbed my head and smiled troublesomely. "Avoid being angry. Life will be difficult if you worry about these kinds of things, won't it?" My buddy stated the ceremony was lovely as well. They both seemed indifferent to it, Richard remarked. They made fun of me, seemingly ridiculing my anguish. I felt immobilized by this behavior. My in-laws showed there shortly after, comforting me and berating Richard and my sister for their actions. My in-laws expressed their regret for their son's actions, saying, "We're truly sorry." Their remarks brought me some tiny consolation, but I also started to feel uneasy and suspicious. It has been 10 months since then. Now my in-laws, Richard and I were driving somewhere. Richard was driving and was in a good mood. "I'm really anticipating this. Maria, do you feel the same way?" I said nothing and kept my head down. When we got to my sister's house, my in-laws and Richard gathered excitedly around the sofa in the living room. My sister was in the middle, carrying her infant. Victoria came running over, her happy smile spreading over her face. "Look, dear, isn't she just too cute? She resembles me exactly." With a twisted smile, my sister observed my reaction, her eyes wide and beaming with happiness. I said gently, "Congratulations," while continuing to stare down. "She's so adorable. Is it okay for me to hold her?" With a twinkle in his eyes, Richard asked, taking the infant in his arms. "Maria, babies are so adorable. This represents happiness." He proudly showed me the baby. "What's wrong? Feeling envious of Victoria? You're not becoming pregnant because of this." Richard grinned at me, and I felt something inside of me crack. "What are you saying?" I stated. "Is she not already here?" My in-laws gazed at the infant in Richard's arms with wide eyes, paralyzed in amazement, and their mouths dropped agape. I checked to make sure I was heard clearly. "She's there. Your child. Your beautiful baby with Victoria." At that point, the air became cold. Victoria's expression contorted into a mixture of surprise and rage, and Richard's face turned pale. I took out a picture from my purse and dropped it to the ground. It was evident from the picture that Richard and my sister were going to a hotel together. I went up to them and told them I was aware of their relationship. Victoria, my sister, simply scoffed and wrote it off as a photoshopped photo. "You're the one being ridiculous, Victoria," I said. I had security cameras put in the house because I feared they were having an affair. I used my phone to play a video when I wasn't there. Victoria's cheeks flushed scarlet as she saw Richard and herself in the living room on camera. "No! Now stop it!" Victoria screamed as she seized my phone with fury, hurled it against the wall, and repeatedly stamped on it, shattering the screen with a loud pop. I observed her icily as she tore apart the pictures. "Do whatever you want because your efforts are useless," I said calmly. With tears in her eyes, Victoria raised her eyebrows and said, "What do you mean by useless?" Before I could say anything, Richard's father barged in and took him by the collar. "Did you truly deceive Maria by sleeping with her own sister? And you even produced a kid. You moron, how are you going to own up to this mess?" Richard shuddered, ashamed of his parents' rejection of him while his mother sobbed. "Hold on. Even whether the child is mine is unknown to us. Maria says whatever she wants to say in an attempt to make me appear terrible. We must do a DNA test." Richard objected. "A DNA test will prove whose child it is," I stated confidently. "Why don't you visit the hospital to have one done?" Nevertheless, Richard persisted in pleading with his parents, telling them that I had little chance of becoming pregnant. "A woman who is unable to bear children is unfit to be a wife." "That's ridiculous," I shot back. "A man who cheats on his spouse is not worthy to be a husband." His father let out a long sigh and turned away as Richard avoided making eye contact. "You also have a responsibility to fulfill. It's a major violation to betray your family," he added. Victoria felt the weight of the situation settle in, and her shoulders jerked. "I'm not to blame." Victoria gave me a demon-like glare and replied, "You're the one at fault, Maria," between gritted teeth. "It's because you took my first love away from me." I couldn't believe I'd forgotten such a thing. I made an effort to be strong when our parents died away, but Victoria was constantly irritable and cranky. Because he sympathized with her and preferred her, the person I loved rejected me. I swore then and there that I would make her genuinely unhappy if that was how she wanted to be pitied. I made up my plan to make her feel alone by telling her over and over again how lonely life would be without our parents. That was part of my strategy, to raise her as a depressed, lonely youngster. I tried to minimize her by showing off my buddies and boasting about my accomplishments. I wanted Richard to experience the pain of failure, even now. She let all the hatred out. Victoria laughed triumphantly, but I didn't feel anything. "I know, I'm really sad. Is that how you feel?" I stated. She appeared surprised, as if I might lose my cool. "I'm over caring about that now. The important thing is how much I hate you. It hurts to realize that you have been controlling me for such a long time because I loved you so much. I'll see to it that you suffer the same consequences as you have me," I said coldly. Victoria flinched away in terror when I mimicked her laugh, maybe because my facial expression was so uncomfortable. I responded, "Just wait and see," and I walked out of the home. After our divorce was formalized months earlier, Richard had gone, most likely to go live with my sister. I attended a wedding today. I wore a big, thick sweater over my dress to keep it fully covered because it was freezing. With more than 100 people in attendance, the wedding was held in a huge church. I was unable to see the bride and groom well because of the thick throng. They probably felt the same way. Applause erupted as the bride and groom entered the room. As the priest started the vows, he asked Richard whether he had taken Victoria as his wife, promising to be there for her through good times and bad, riches and poverty, and health and illness. Victoria and Richard were married today. Victoria publicized their shotgun wedding on social media a month after our altercation, which is when I learned about it. She disclosed in her piece that they had been preparing the wedding for a long time, maybe even before my own wedding, and shared information about it. Victoria hadn't asked her pals to my wedding for this reason. She had promised to set up a group chat so she could personally verify the attendees. I originally saw her desire to lighten my load amid the stressful wedding planning as a nice act. Looking back, though, it appears that she most likely never started that group chat and made up the attendance. The reason no one attended the event was that nobody was formally invited. Richard invited only those he knew well or with whom he had a passing relationship. Richard never introduced me to any of his close pals. It's still unclear whether Richard had a relationship with my sister before getting married to me or whether time was just off. However, it's obvious that they wanted this wedding to be special to them, possibly to sever my relationship with Richard. How am I supposed to accept that? I spent a lot of time and affection on Richard. That they would ruin someone else's life to achieve their own pleasure is inexcusable. As the wedding ceremony came to an end and the celebration got underway, I reiterated my resolve to get retribution. It was a busy buffet-style event with a large number of attendees. As the staff said, "Now we'll present a congratulatory video." I remained in the shadows. "The groom's parents have sent us a special message because they are unable to be here today. Please pay attention." The moment Richard's parents appeared on the venue's screen, Victoria and Richard were taken aback. Their eyes were keen like predators, even though they were grinning. I grinned as soon as the video began. "Richard and Victoria, congratulations on your marriage." The video opened, with the pair grinning. "I appreciate everyone's presence today. We would like to provide you with a gift as a symbol of our appreciation." Murmurs of excitement moved through the throng. "A talent with words? What is it?" a person inquired. "It's a gift of words," the mother-in-law cut in. "It's your time now." The mother-in-law went on. "Look at the bride there. She's Richard's mistress and she's also his wife's sister." Her once calm expression turning ominous. "Are you listening? These folks are adulterers, not simply a recently married couple. We will cut all connections with them going forward and never recognize their marriage." The harm was done when the camera abruptly stopped, but Richard's cry could still be heard across the room. The stunning news startled the guests into silence. Richard shot to his feet, attempting to turn the tide. "Everyone, that was just my parents' joke. I believe that was a little too offensive." There were confused murmurs from the crowd. As Victoria reached for the microphone to excuse herself, I grabbed it away from her. "It's true," I said. Then I took off my cardigan to show off my white dress. "When I married Richard a year ago, I wore this outfit. Richard, you remember, don't you?" Richard froze in disbelief, his face going ghastly pale. I took advantage of the opportunity to take pictures out of an envelope and distribute them all over the place. The photographs contained pictures from my wedding to Richard, as well as pictures from Victoria and Richard's affair. There were sufficient copies to give to each attendee. I inhaled deeply as I looked around the chaotic arena, experiencing a mixture of relief and fatigue. I had really completed the task. When everything had calmed down, I fell, stunned. I felt a hand suddenly seize my collar. I looked up and saw Victoria's shocked, wide-open eyes. "What brings you here? You were not given an invitation," she insisted. "I didn't tell you the location or the time." I chuckled at her fear. "Victoria, what are you talking about? It was brought up on social media by you. The date was announced in your wedding announcement, and every update talked about the location and your plans. I noticed it immediately. It was a clue, but you probably meant to brag about how much nicer your wedding was than mine. What made you get in?" Victoria questioning. "It was simple to locate the location on the internet," I said. "Social media may tell a lot about a person. I'm the bride's sister, thus I'm up for admission. I was permitted in by your buddy the receptionist who recognized me. The bride's sister wouldn't be sent away just because her name wasn't on the guest list." "That video was brought in covertly, wasn't it?" Victoria made accusations. "You mentioned it was unexpected." "That's correct," I replied. "Your in-laws visited my home to offer their apologies. We organized this celebration jointly because they couldn't stand to see Richard and you happy." Laughing, I motioned around the area, noticing that folks were beginning to leave. I remarked, "Look, everybody's walking away." Victoria watched her pals averting their eyes from her, and her cheeks became pale. "What is your reason for leaving? How about the pictures?" Victoria begged. Her pals remarked, "We don't want to be associated with someone who might have committed adultery, even though the photos might be fake. Our own worth would be diminished if we were seen alongside you." "But you know we're friends." Though the hurt was evident in their remarks, Victoria objected. They said, "Well, we were also friends with you because of the brand name gifts and the perks that came with it. Is that the reason we assisted you? Take group pictures so you may show them off to people. This cannot be taking place. One more thing before I go. You've always thought of us as mere numbers. The higher the better. You have never shown concern for each of us personally." It had to be a tender spot. Victoria nibbled on her lip. Her companion said, "Goodbye, Victoria," as they departed the now empty and quiet venue. I was surprisingly calm while Victoria sat on the floor with Richard resting his head in his hands. I responded, "Well then, Victoria, see you around," as I was leaving. After a few days, I was having a nice time at home during Victoria's wedding, but I knew that this calm wouldn't continue. The doorbell went off. I opened the door and peered through the peephole to see Richard. Enraged, Richard charged at me. "How on earth could you carry off such an absurd prank? You destroyed our joy. That's unbelievable, you evil woman." Victoria nudged me from behind, hiding behind Richard. I tumbled to the floor after crashing into the wall. However, I didn't give a damn. "You two never learn, but it's good that you came," I answered coolly. "Richard, check your email. Something significant is present there." Right before answering the door, I had written an email. I've included movies and pictures. "Again with the photos and videos?" Richard sighed and reached for his phone. He turned the screen to face Victoria, his face flushed with rage. He insisted, "Who is this old man?" In the pictures, Victoria was shown shaking hands with many older guys while wearing skimpy, exposing clothing. She was seen on camera accepting money from them as she entered and exited hotels. "Sugar Daddy," I called it outright. "You always purchase name-brand merchandise, presumably to brag to me. But I had to do some research because that's not achievable on a regular paycheck. It resembled working as a detective." Victoria's breathing grew labored, and she let out a gasp. Richard turned to face me, looking defeated. "Hey, Richard, did you get the DNA test done?" I inquired. "What?" Richard seems taken aback. "I didn't mention a DNA test." "A DNA test would confirm if the child is really yours and Victoria's," I said. Richard appeared to realize how uncomfortable things actually were. He answered, "You don't need that," but I persisted. "Whose child do you think it is?" I posed a straightforward question. Pulling Victoria's hand toward him, Richard turned to look into Victoria's eyes. "Victoria, did you turn against me, following everything, even the child situation? What are you even saying? You own that child. Are you unsure about me?" "I am, of course. How can I put my faith in someone who dates sugar daddies covertly?" He made a challenge. "You'll consent to a DNA test since you have more faith in Maria than in me, right? Tomorrow we're heading to the hospital." She scoffed. Desperate to trust Victoria, Richard held her hand. Victoria muttered, obviously upset. For me, this was sufficient proof. Richard raked his fingers through his hair in frustration. God damn it. I would have thought that having a gorgeous wife would be a source of pride, but this disaster is real. My life has been utterly destroyed by you sisters. Richard exploded with fury, kicking the furniture and storming out of the house. Richard shoved her away when she tried to stop him, and he ended up sitting on the floor and staring down. I chose to annoy her. So, how do you feel now, Victoria? I questioned, observing her twitch in answer. Once the test results come in, Richard will leave you, and you'll have lost all your friends too, I said. Victoria gave me a harsh stare. I have friends. Not all people have given up on me. Then what about the messages you received? I applied pressure. Victoria, obviously surprised by the inquiry, let out a bewildered shriek. After the ceremony, did anyone express concern, ask about the situation, or offer comfort? Victoria awkwardly turned her head away. I did get texts during my divorce with Richard, and even after you attempted to make me look foolish with that strange statement. Even though I only have 8 pals, they have all expressed concern for me and offered assistance. Nobody appeared to care about you, in contrast to you, even though you had a lot more friends, I said. Victoria's teeth grinding was audible to me. Now friendless, abandoned by the guy you took from me? That is really sad. I genuinely mean every word, I responded, unfazed by her response. Suddenly looking up, Victoria cried out, "Pitiable? What are you discussing? That is only your viewpoint. I'm not pathetic. I'm attractive, have a fantastic body, and am respected enough for guys to treat me. You are the pathetic one, full of nothing to be proud of." I answered calmly, saying, "That's correct. Additionally, let me say this. Victoria, you have never been better than me. Not now, not in the past, and not in the future." What? Victoria had a surprised expression. I used to compliment you and say how wonderful your name-brand products and large social circle were. Is that what you were hoping for? For me to concede that you were better? But you were never fantastic to me in my life. I looked down at Victoria's backpack on the ground. I don't give a damn about having a lot of friends or about expensive brands. I simply don't value having a large number of friends, therefore I've never strived for that. Thus, Victoria, you were never able to surpass me. What? Not in a manner. You would constantly comment on how wonderful I was and how jealous you were of me, she asked, surprised. I said those things to make you happy because we're family, I said. If someone smiles while boasting, I wouldn't discount it completely. You took the compliments I was giving you sincerely. Victoria, we were the only family we had, and I didn't want to lose you, so I was considerate, I said. Victoria let out a scream, her voice faltering. Speak the truth. You were distressed by your inability to become parents. It no longer matters to me, I sighed in response. I told myself that having children was necessary in my relationship with Richard, but that's not how life works. There are a multitude of individuals and lifestyle choices. I'm going to stop torturing myself over wanting kids. So what then? Victoria started to shake a lot. She was still now, so I pulled her outside the house. I said goodbye to Victoria and slammed the door. Following that, Richard and Victoria were divorced. Since they had invited 100 guests to their wedding, word of their affair traveled rapidly when the DNA test confirmed the child wasn't Richard's. Both Richard and Victoria experienced job loss and difficulty in finding new employment, which made their lives as day-to-day employees challenging. In an attempt to start again, I moved away from my hometown, leaving Victoria and Richard behind. I was going to start over and wipe the slate clean. I'm going to see a buddy of mine who just had a baby today. With a baby present in my hand, I rang the ring. I gave my friend my sincere congrats as she opened the door.